We have had our first look at patch 7.5 of Final Fantasy XIV, and you guys have some theories about what's going to happen to the story, and it is our sacred, nay, our honor-bound duty to react to them. Buckle up, people, because we have some crazy ones today. Hello, everybody. It's your boy Jmulls, and let's get right into this. Up first, we have at Pim Sutter, who says, "It is hard to say where this will go, but I have this theory that we might have a Garlemald expansion. We didn't get it in Endwalker. Don't remind me. So maybe the expansion that is coming soon will be one where we can travel through all of Ilsabad, finding a way to stop the Great Winter from happening and learn what is really going on. I have to agree with many of the theories that Zodiac and Hydaelyn's death is the cause of the Withering, and I'm also positive that the Void might hold the key for stopping the Withering. Now, a Garlemald theme expansion, if you had asked me a couple of weeks ago, I would have said it was very unlikely, and I still kind of feel that way, but now that we know that we're going to the Clyteum dungeon in patch 7.5, which is almost certainly Garlemald. I mean, come on, just look at it, right? I could see a way that they could introduce more of Garlemald in the future of the story, especially if, like, the Clyteum ends up being a very important location that maybe we want to revisit in the future. Or maybe it acts as some kind of like middleman between us and where we actually want to go. Garlemald for so long was such a central pillar of this narrative, and now that the Empire has like properly fallen, there is a lot of stories that can be told within a lot of the regions in Ilsabad, places that might still be under Garlemald's thumb or places that used to be and now no longer are. I mean, come on, just like look at the world map, at least of the 3 great continents. Look at how much of Ilsabad we just don't really know about. We've been to here, we've been to Eorzea, obviously, but much of Ilsabad we just haven't really gone to. It's like, we've been to Ivalice, sure. We've had, let's call it an artistic interpretation of Corvos with the latest variant dungeon, but there's so much to Ilsabad we just have not explored. And I know a lot of people, myself included, we're talking about like going to Hingashi, eventually going down to Mericidia, the different shards. There's still a lot in the old world we can still explore. And one of the things we've been theorizing for a while at this point is, what if Dawntrail is kind of like the blueprint for a story that they're going to reuse for this next narrative arc? Or what do I mean by this? Well, for Dawntrail, it was the story of the peoples of Tulialol and also Alexandria from the 9th merging together and having to like interact with each other. They could use that overall blueprint going forward. Like maybe we go to somewhere in Ilsabad, but we have an Alexandria type situation happen with another shard where like a chunk of that world is just transplanted to Ilsabad or Garlemald or some other region in Ilsabad, and we have to deal with that. I think this is one of the best parts of like the current story for Final Fantasy XIV, is there's like so many locations we kind of know about and we want to go at some point, but we don't really know when they're going to pull those triggers. But if you're anything like me, like I want to go like everywhere here. There's still plenty of places in Tulialol we haven't been to, like North America and also South America, Mericidia. We could explore the South Sea Isles even more. Hingashi, obviously, pretty much all of Ilsabad. Blindfrost as well. That's another one we've been theorizing about. There's so many places, man. And yeah, like Garlemald and Ilsabad, at least chunks of Ilsabad, are known for their winter. It's like maybe they could like leverage that. Maybe we don't have a full expansion exploring Blindfrost. Maybe Blindfrost ends up being like a zone or something that we go to. Like how in Thavnir we only had one zone. Maybe they end up doing that for Blindfrost and it's just part of an overall larger Ilsabad themed expansion. Like maybe they could pull that trigger. I don't know if that would be 8.0. Maybe it could be like 9.0. But Ilsabad definitely feels like one of those places that is just aching to have those clouds removed from the map. Next up, we have at Zoe Illa, who says, "The new villain is obvious from the dungeon. Yoshida loves Gundam, so it's Neo Zeon / Neo Garlemald." Now, I can't personally contribute from the Gundam side of things because, well, I've never watched Gundam before, but I am a big fan of giant robots, and you know what? Give me an excuse to bust out the G-Warrior, and you're not gonna hear any complaining from me. I want that thing to be used liberally. I want to use that thing to go to the market board in Gridania ya. Give me the actual mech suit, and I'm gonna spam that thing. It won't be off cooldown for longer than a frame. But like circling back to the Clyteum dungeon, the thing that really is interesting to me when it comes to this dungeon is just how worn down and abandoned it looks. I'm a Nier fan. Like, to me, this really feels, and I don't think this is like intentional on their part, but to me it feels like the beginning of Nier Replicant. And I love this like haunted, desolate feel that the Clyteum just has. And I love how everything just looks cold, you know? Like everything looks frozen to the bone. Like the texture work on a lot of these buildings is very nice. And maybe this was fallout from pick a civil war in Garlemald, right? But clearly something significant happened in the Clyteum. So if you guys are Gundam fans and you understand what might be implied here, leave it in the comments down below. I'd love to read them. Look, I'll be honest with you. Any excuse to have a giant robot, you're not gonna hear me complaining. In fact, I'm going to celebrate it. So I'm all on board with this theory. Mainly just because I want G-Warrior back. I miss him. Next up, we have at Rugginzoo Reggie 385, who says, I know I'm totally random here. Regardless, hello, but can we please include Master Seymour from Final Fantasy X somewhere? His story, I feel, gets convoluted with how he was faced in X. I feel his character could add a lot to the philosophical aspect of the villain sphere. Now, like outside of Golbez, I can't really recall Final Fantasy XIV specifically having an antagonist that is just up front, one for one, basically the character from another Final Fantasy game, unless it's in like a raid or something. But they did do it with Golbez. And I think if you're going to do a story like The Great Withering, and it goes in like any of the directions we kind of imagine something called The Great Withering will go in, I think a character like Seymour could really work in a scenario like that. Now, it has been quite a while since I played Final Fantasy X, so I am extremely rusty on it, and only did a few quick Google searches just to refresh my memory on this. But I do feel as if an antagonist whose motivation is quickening everyone's death, and this isn't like one for one what Seymour was in Final Fantasy X, I'm just saying like I feel like you can retool kind of that theme for whatever the Great Withering will be. You have a character who's an antagonist whose like chief goal is to kill everyone to prevent this other great catastrophe from claiming them. Or perhaps the Great Withering for whatever reason is worse than death, and they view death to be the alternative that is preferable. I feel like a character like that could go a far way, and I feel like they tried that somewhat when it came to Calyx. This definitely feels like a theme, though, that could be further explored going forward, and I highly doubt we're done with it. Now, maybe they don't have a character that is just called Maester Seymour. Maybe the character that is supposed to, like, represent him, assuming they do this, by the way, maybe he doesn't even look like Seymour, but having a character kind of fulfill that role, I think could be really compelling, especially with what one of the biggest theories we're going around with, in these parts at least, is Final Fantasy X might have a greater role going forward for Final Fantasy XIV, particularly the next expansion, because of that New Year's message with like wind and waves and all that, and Final Fantasy X being very much water themed. You could argue it's a bit of a stretch, and maybe they don't use it for the main story. I do think it's a distinct possibility, though. I think it could be really cool, whether it's like supposed to be one for one with Seymour, or just like some version of that type of villain. Either way, I think it could work. And also, you know what? Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, we already had Anima, like back in Endwalker. So like we had Anima. Completely different use case, absolutely. But maybe they could do something similar with Seymour, who knows? Bro, what are my comments? We have at Pandemonium9255 who says, please, for the love of everything, just say I'm hunting wabbits in your next hot take video. Kudos if you do the laugh. My wife suggested I sub if you do. Never say I haven't done anything for you guys. Now be very, very quiet. I'm hunting wabbits. Some of my favorite theories are the ones where I'm just like, there's no way they would ever do this. But if they did, oh boy, would it be cool. This is one of those. We have at Tisa Touch who says, what if all the shards are damned, so we end up taking pieces of each shard to stitch together a new whole? We can't save the whole of each shard, so we save what we can. This is the kind of brutal storytelling I would be such a big fan of. And like, depending on how they tell tell it, there's so many interesting moral quandaries that could just be explored. Like, what if we have to pick like one town or the other to save? Now, it's an MMORPG. I'm not actually expecting us to be able to make an actual choice here, but I just think with how tragic and brutal the story of Final Fantasy XIV can be, I think this could be a very interesting direction to take, because I think one of the big problems with the story right now is just us as the character of the Warrior of Light, where it's like, no matter what happens, we kind of feel like we have the confidence that we're going to come out on top at the other end of whatever we deal with. Maybe there might be a few hiccups along the road, but generally speaking, I feel pretty confidently we're going to win the day. So putting us in a position where we like have to choose, or in a position where we cannot win, we have to salvage what we can, I don't think they would do it. But if they were to, I wonder if one of the expansions would just be us shard hopping. Like, one zone is this shard and another zone is this other shard, and then at the end of that entire story, we just take those specific zones and just place them on the source or onto some other shard like the 1st or the 13th. That way we still keep the physical zone and those quests that could be in that zone, but like the skybox there is different or something like that. Maybe they could do something along those lines. I could kind of see that. And maybe Living Memory was just mostly like a beta test for them to do something like that down the line on just a grander scale. And you know what? I'm starting to convince myself the more I talk about this. Prepare, people. We have a big one here. We have at Kuro Nai Altani, who says, the biggest thing for me is that one way or another, we need to figure out how to stabilize the world's ether. Zodiac was created to kickstart my heart, the world again, and push out Dynamis, creating a sort of shield around it. At the same time, Hydaelyn sundered the world, but retained Zodiac and his control over ether. Within moments of us killing Zodiac, thanks to Fandaniel, the Endsinger made a move and it all went to crap. Then we killed Hydaelyn. Both gods of activity and stasis have been removed, returned to the livestream, meaning all that ether on the respective shard and its moon has nowhere to go. It'll rot and fade into nothing. So Halmarut's plan, I'm assuming, has to find a way to survive a total etheric collapse of every world without needing physical bodies anymore. And Calyx played his part through memory storage, but we got in the way. With Enuo, for those who don't remember, it's the trial fight in patch 7.5 from Final Fantasy V, being a guardian to the void, and now we have this crystal key that reacted to Asm's crystal. I think we're on a direct course to a new rejoining of some kind that won't completely kill a shard or shards, but will stabilize everything by linking dark to light once again. We proved we can bring darkness activity back to the 1st. We proved we can bring light, stasis, back to the assumed lost 13th. Now, I'm in a little bit of a disadvantage here because I haven't played Final Fantasy V, so I'll take your word on him being like, what was the wording here? A guardian to the void. But yeah, I definitely think they've been kind of like leaving the pieces on the game board, so at some point in the future they can bring them all together. Like what was addressed at the end of the theory, where we know we can bring dark to the 1st and we can bring light to the 13th. We had an entire arc basically addressing that. And then at the end of Endwalker, they brought in Gaia into the main story with Reen. And then throughout the Endwalker patches, we dealt with Zero and Golbez in the 13th. We had their character development and then we just kind of put them on hold. And that really feels like what they're doing with a lot of different elements to this narrative. Developing the idea, developing various characters, and then putting them on hold to do that for even more things. Now we're dealing with Halmarut. Now we're dealing with Calyx. Now we're dealing, at least we were in Dawntrail, dealing with a part of a shard being essentially transplanted onto the source. And it just feels like maybe throughout 8.0 or 8.x, maybe through 9.x or like even 10.0, at some point they're going to pull the trigger and bring all these various components back together. And it goes back to one of the things I think we're going to do. And I think I heard it originally from like Jesse Cox, where it's like, we're going to form a team and it's going to be a team of various entities from these different shards. We have Reen and Gaia from the 1st. We have Golbez and Zero from the 13th. We now have Sphene and Alexandria from the 9th. And I imagine we could do that with the other shards as well, depending upon how they want to introduce those shards into the main story. And I think one of the reasons we keep seeing theories surrounding like Zodiac and us dealing with him in Endwalker was this like big trigger for everything is because it makes makes the most sense. And I also think it's a very smart way to like transition us into a new narrative arc, is to use the finale of the last one as the spark that lights the fire for what we're dealing with now. So it doesn't feel like a story that's too disconnected from what came before, which I think is one of the easiest pitfalls for a lot of very long-term stories that just like kind of fall into, where stories just end up feeling disconnected from each other. And if this is how they want to weave everything together, I think it's a great way to make everything feel interconnected, as if it is one overarching narrative flowing from one into the other. I really wouldn't be surprised if this theory is very close to the mark. And I think the main reason I feel like that is because this is kind of just how Final Fantasy XIV and Square Enix like to tell a story in Final Fantasy XIV. They like to leave all these different breadcrumbs. They like to develop all these different little bits, and then at some point down the line, bring some, if not all of them together. Maybe not all at once, but we'll be revisiting all these concepts down the line. And I think just outside of just how practical or realistic is this theory, assuming like this is something close to correct, it also shows a very focused vision for the narrative going forward. And I just think that overall, that's a really great sign, because a lot of what this theory said makes a lot of sense and feels very realistic. God, I need FanFest so badly, man. Give me that trailer now. No! And now here's where you come in. Leave a comment down below with your theories for what's going to happen in patch 7.5. Let's get a little bit specific here, yeah? I want your best theories, your best predictions for what's going to happen in 7.5. Also, give me your wildest and your craziest. I want you to swing for the fences. I want home run dingers only, people. What's going on with Enua? What's going on with the Clyteum? Why are the twins back in the key art for the patch? Like, what's going on with that? Didn't we just say goodbye to them? If you never swing the bat, you'll never get a hit. And leave it in the comments down below. And while you're down there, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. And until FanFest, I'll be streaming Chrono Trigger. What a phenomenal game that's turning out to be. Though the robots did kind of farm me. And if your mind is racing a mile a minute with all these theories, do I have a video for you? Because I reacted to even more of your theories for the future of Final Fantasy XIV. And with the added context of the 7.5 live letter, ooh, these get juicy, people. Check out this video right here for more. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe. Have a great day. And I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.